This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo, giving you the inside track on all the big talking points from Anfield.
Hello everybody and welcome to the latest Liverpool Blood Red podcast with me, Ian Doyle, and a very damp Ian Doyle at that as well. It's absolutely belting it down here in Liverpool. Joining me we have today Beth Lindop. Hello.
Hello.
You obviously cover women's football, and it's pretty exciting for certainly England's team at the moment.
It is, yeah. They've been faring slightly better than Liverpool have over these last sort of couple of months. So but excited to dive back into all things Liverpool for today.
Okay, and also we've got Steve Killen. Hello, how are you doing?
Good afternoon, very good.
It's the first time I've seen you on this podcast with me anyway.
It's a debut for me.
Was it debut of any podcast? Well, we are honoured. We're honoured. Anyway, so we're here obviously the day after Liverpool opened the Premier League campaign with a 1-1 draw at Chelsea. I was down there, slightly warmer and less rainy actually than it is here at the moment. But Liverpool got off to a good start. Beth got that goal through Luis Diaz, but really, it was the Mohamed Salah's disallowed goal, which was a tight call, but you can't argue with the lines these days. And from that moment on, Chelsea, certainly for a good 45 minutes, were the better team, weren't they? They seemed to take inspiration from the fact that they weren't 2-0 down.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that felt, as soon as that goal got chalked off, that Mo Salah goal, you sort of felt like that might be the turning point of the game. Had that gone 2-0, I think Chelsea might perhaps have, the ghost of last season might have come home to roost a little bit and might have got a little bit nervy and could have potentially got a little bit messy for them, but that was a bit of a reprieve after, as you said, Liverpool started really well, and then from that point on Liverpool weren't really in the game, were they? And I think as soon as Chelsea got the equaliser, I never really felt Liverpool were going to go on to win it, apart from perhaps late on when those substitutes come on, Harvey Elliott, Ben Doak, they sort of brought a little bit more energy. Darwin Núñez obviously a little bit unlucky not to get that winner near the end. I mean, what a story that would have been for him to come on and get the winner, but it was after a fast start. It was a reverting back to the problems of last season. Defensively, we looked incredibly vulnerable, as a lot of people have pointed out, I think it sort of completely highlighted why Liverpool were prepared to break the British transfer record for Moises Caicedo.
We'll come on to all the transfers in a bit, Steve, but your take on the game, would you pretty much agree with that? Were you surprised by anything that Liverpool did? Because if you've seen the games during the summer, that it was pretty much, you knew they were going to be quite good going forward, but a little bit open defensively.
Surprised they didn't concede more. Obviously, we've seen them conceding three or four every time. But no, not necessarily shocked. I don't think. Obviously, you can sort of expect to be defensively susceptible to attacks when you sort of throw it together. Like Klopp said, he's one formation for them for now and not for the rest of the season. So I think we've done well to get a point and then just move on to Bournemouth now.
With any individual performances that stood out? I mean, obviously the goalkeeper, Alisson Becker, he made a couple of good saves, certainly in the second half. But, Mo Salah, we'll come on to him in a sec, but certainly in the first half, he was probably the game's best player, wasn't he?
Yeah, and McAllister as well, good mention for him, because he sort of anchored the play a bit, but you could tell he's not used to that role. Sometimes getting dragged out of position, not following his runners, but you can imagine that for someone who's not played that position that much, if at all.
Talking of McAllister, I only gave him a 6 in the ratings, and quite a few people had a go at me, which is unlike them, to be fair.
Makes
That's
a
unlike
change.
that does, yeah. But I mean, I agree. I thought that he struggled a little bit with the defensive responsibilities in the first half. There was about 2 or 3 times where he lost the ball or didn't so much lose the ball as it was taken off him near the area. So going forward, he obviously put the ball through for Salah to cross for Diaz to get the opener. I mean, do you feel a little bit, not sorry for him, but do you feel as though he deserved a little bit better given the fact that he was actually he was making a competitive Liverpool debut, wasn't he?
Yeah, and he's playing in a role that, yes, he can play and has played at times before, but it's not his favoured position, and I think that's a shame. I think for both him and Dominic Szoboszlai coming into this team, you would like them to be able to get off the mark quickly and to do that by playing in the favoured positions and having a stable midfield around them and sort of a midfield anchor behind them, and obviously Liverpool's recruitment strategy over the last few weeks, which I'm sure we'll get into, I think is meant that they've maybe had to sort of plug some holes in midfield. We saw Cody Gakpo dropping into midfield. I mean, he was sort of that run toward the end of the season where Liverpool were unbeaten in, was it 11 toward the end of the season? Yeah. I think Cody Gakpo's form in that false 9 role was instrumental to that. So I think, again, the fact that he's had to drop back and play in midfield sort of shows you that Liverpool are sort of going into this season with sort of a slightly makeshift team in some positions. And so for the likes of McAllister, yes, I thought he did well at times. I think, that ball Mo in the build up to Diaz's goal shows you the quality that he possesses, and I thought he did okay. But yeah, I think until he's got that number 6 behind him that can really sort of allow him to get forward and play in a slightly more advanced role, we're not going to see the best of him.
What did you make of Gakpo midfield? Again, a little bit. It was kind of, square pegs in round holes, wasn't it? He played there once last season against Brentford in the home game, but I actually think that he played in that one for 2 reasons. One, there wasn't anyone else left, which is a little bit like it was on Sunday. But for his height at set pieces, whereas they didn't really need that on Sunday, it just didn't really seem to work, did it? Because he seemed to be caught a little bit. He didn't know whether to get forward as much. And the one time that he did, he put that ball in for Salah, didn't he? Which was behind him, and Salah ended up hitting the bar. But defensively, kind of the game got bypassed, didn't it, a little bit around him?
You can see with the glimpses that when Liverpool have been crying out for that midfield, goal scoring from midfield, he can bring that. But as I said, the game just sort of bypassed him. And then when for the goal, he sort of just looking around. He didn't really know where to be. It's like the point I made at the start, when you sort of throw a team together, and obviously Klopp said he's played there in pre-season, they should get used to it, but probably a tough ask, especially against the likes of Enzo and Gallagher, but even Gallagher struggled as well. But I think you probably would maybe go for Gakpo further forward going forward.
I mean, because obviously they will come on to what they can do over the next couple of days because they're playing Bournemouth on Saturday, but would you be surprised if you saw Gakpo there again?
It depends what happens in the next few days, doesn't it? But even still, I think probably Klopp settled for maybe a stopgap for now. But I hope it's not going to be for the long term, so you can see he's going to struggle, and you probably miss what sort of Gakpo was learning from Firmino before the end of the season. You're going to lose that where Jota sort of played a bit apart from the left and in the middle.
I think it sort of evokes memories of that horrendous season where Liverpool lost all the centre-backs and they were suddenly plugging the defensive gaps with midfielders. They had Fabinho and Jordan Henderson at centre-back, and actually when Nat Phillips and Reece Williams came in, although sort of their quality on the ball perhaps isn't to the level of Fabinho or Jordan Henderson, the fact that they were centre-backs playing centre-back actually just really helped the team and allowed for a bit of stability. So I think, again, you don't want to be sort of plugging holes with players who are playing completely out of position, and while Gakpo can play there, it should be a last resort. It shouldn't be something that Liverpool are trying to do for the first few weeks of the season. It should be in an absolute emergency, so you would hope that they get someone in, or then maybe you put Curtis Jones in there. I mean, I know he didn't have the best cameo yesterday, but he is at least a midfielder, and so playing in midfield.
Because don't forget, it's only the first game. I think we can get a bit carried away. I mean, any season, if you go to Chelsea, irrelevant of what their situation is and you get a positive result, it's normally quite a good scoreline. But for Chelsea's point of view, Pochettino's first game, the crowd were kind of up for it, although it was a bit weird when they scored. There didn't seem to be a massive cheer. It was odd. It was like, I think they couldn't see who scored, and I must admit I didn't know at the time, and their goal was a little bit spawny, let's be honest. It's just one of those. What you might say though about Liverpool is that for all of that, and people were expecting them, and you mentioned that they expect them to concede more, defensively they were actually pretty resolute. Alisson had 2 saves to make in the second half, and there was that strange situation in injury time when Mudryk ended up going through despite the fact Liverpool had a corner. I mean, don't get me started on that. But otherwise, they kind of kept them a little bit at bay, didn't they? And I think we were just mentioning just before we came on that you thought the second half was quite dull.
Yeah, it was. I think we've become pretty accustomed now to seeing Liverpool and Chelsea play out draws, and it was just a relief that we got 2 goals for it. Yeah. But yeah, I think it was. Someone in the office the other day said, "Oh, it's a good time to be playing Chelsea first game of the season," and they're not quite there yet. They've not quite got the squad together, and I'm always anxious when we go away and play Chelsea. It's always a tough game, and there's better Liverpool sides that have gone to Stamford Bridge and been beaten. So it was a better point for Liverpool yesterday, I think, on the balance of play than it was for Chelsea, and the fact that they were at home and the new manager bounce, and so I think Liverpool have to take that point, and it is something to build on. But I think they were probably lucky that they didn't get beat as much as Chelsea didn't have too many sort of real clear-cut chances. The momentum was with them for most of the game. But yeah, I think a point at the end of the day, Liverpool do have to be happy with that. But yeah, they need to put up their ideas quickly defensively, I think.
What can they do then, other than sign somebody? I mean, obviously Bournemouth aren't going to be Chelsea, and if there's one game where, without no disrespect to Bournemouth whatsoever, but if there's one game that you would like to think that you can get by without a ready-made, proven defensive midfielder, it's going to be Bournemouth at home because you're probably going to get most of the ball. And that was the one concern that I had from the game on Sunday. So Liverpool had 35% possession. You never normally see that. They just kept on giving the ball away, and I understand that came from having so many players out of position and certain standards of players missing. But they're going to have to start keeping the ball a little bit better if they want to do anything this season, aren't they?
Yeah, that's the thing with Liverpool. Like, you can see sometimes going forward, they're absolutely phenomenal and ferocious, and then at the back, it's shady and shoddy at times. But the midfield gets bypassed, and I think we've seen last season how easy it was to get from back to front with Liverpool. That a bit of stability is needed. The same with Beth saying, playing Chelsea is probably the best time to play them, but playing Bournemouth could be. But with their new manager and having a good result against West Ham, is just, you don't know how they're going to come out, and you don't want to chop and change too much, but maybe it is time to sort of put the foundations in place for the rest of the season.
What positives are you taking from the game then?
Didn't lose. That's always a good
It's always a good one. That. It's got a good goal, to be fair. They did score a good goal, and they did have a very good goal disallowed as well. So would you say going forward, they've certainly got, and of course the second one was from Trent stepping into midfield. Yeah. Now, in fact, I'll ask the pair of you, what do you make of this formation? Because I'm still not convinced that that's the way they should be going because of the players that they got available. It's different when City and Arsenal play because they've been doing it for a while and they've got the players for it and have moulded the squad around, whereas Liverpool just decided in April, let's give this a go, and since then I think they've let 6 or 7 players go, whether full-time or on loan, and they've only got 2 in.
But Trent Alexander-Arnold spoke about it after the game. He said, I think people started to get Liverpool's number a bit, which it felt like years before last season, but it's probably a good change. Obviously the proof's in the pudding if it works or not, which I don't know. I'm the same as you, I'm a bit sceptical, but you've seen it's a good way for them to sort of create, and maybe when backs up it's sort of struggling to unpick the locks, it could work that way. But especially defensively, you're left wondering, aren't you? I'm left wanting to see how far this formation can go, because when Liverpool are conceding that many chances, sort of need to combat it going forward, don't you?
Yeah, I just don't think they've got the personnel to sustain it over a 38-game season. I think, the odd game, especially sort of, again, no disrespect to Bournemouth, but the likes of Bournemouth at home, that might be fine when everyone's fit and firing. But, you lose Ibrahima Konate to injury. Hopefully, touch wood, doesn't happen. But, when we look back at his injury record, it's probably likely he's going to miss a couple of games this season. And then you think, well, who comes into that role then? Do you trust Joe Gomez with that in a back three? Do you trust Joel Matip? From what we've seen in pre-season, perhaps not. So I think unless Liverpool are prepared to bring in, and it's not just the case of bringing in one defensive midfielder or one centre-back, I think if they want to play that position, that formation for the entirety of the season, they need a good few players. But I thought it was interesting what Trent said after the game. I think he said, I feel like I can control the game more from midfield, which, there's been so much debate over, well, is he really transitioned fully into a midfielder? Is he a right back who sometimes plays in midfield? And I think listening to what he said there almost sounded like he was suggesting perhaps he'd like to be in midfield permanently, in which case, do you go and get another right back? Do you go and get another defender? So, yeah, it's interesting. I think at the minute, Liverpool just don't have the personnel to use that system, as a long-term solution.
We'll deal with Mo Salah very briefly. Obviously, he was going for a 7th successive opening day with a goal. That would have been a record, and if he'd have scored, he would have scored the most amount of goals on the opening day in Premier League history. Yeah, I would hardly say it's the world's greatest record, let's be honest. You know what I mean? It just means you were available and you played a good game on the first day. There's another 37 games to go, but he he almost got his goal with the one that was disallowed, as we mentioned before, borderline decision. But then I must admit, when his number came up, I was a bit surprised. I know that his second half wasn't quite as good as his first half, but that was probably down to the fact that no one gave him a pass. Yeah. And they brought Ben Doak on, and Salah reacted. Fair to say, he was a bit frustrated and angry, wasn't he? Took the tape off his wrists, wasn't it, or his hands, and then just threw it on the floor. And just muttering to himself when he got on the bench. I only saw later on that it actually television showed that, because we could obviously see it when I was just watching him all the way there, and he was not happy. Yeah. But should we be concerned? I mean, surely you'd be more concerned if a player gets substituted and he's like, yes, great, glad I'm going off.
It's a testament to his character, really, isn't it? Yeah. We've seen his post at the end of the season where he was apologising to Liverpool fans for not qualifying for the Champions League, but you get it with your star players, don't you? And like you said, you'd be more concerned if you're your star player was running off, clapping their hands in delight that they not had a touch for the second half. But it's one of them things. It's something that we can talk about, but I think it's not really anything to really pick apart, is it?
Do you think? Well, don't say that. We need to talk about it. Yeah. Do you reckon it'll have just been completely forgotten about by the time they got home last night?
You'd like to think so. I mean, it's not the first time we've seen sort of Mo get frustrated at it being taken off. We saw it again with Sadio Mane, didn't we? That infamous one at Burnley when he came off, and you know, your top players do that. They get frustrated, and especially when there is a record, albeit, as you say, a slightly sketchy record, but when there's a record on the line, you know, Mo Salah, especially with his goal having been chalked off in the first half, probably wanted to get on the score sheet. I mean, Mo, regardless of what sort of game he's having, is the one Liverpool player I always feel is capable of producing something out of nothing, and I think that was why, you know, a lot of fans were left baffled, as well as he was, obviously, in terms of him getting taken off. But yeah, I mean, I'm surprised when he came off. I did think, you know, that there's definitely going to be someone trying to force a link to Saudi Arabia or something like that after that debacle. But
do you mean like you just have now?
Yeah, just like I have now, yeah. But there's definitely going to be some sort of sketchy rumours that come out after that. But no, I think it, you know, I'm sure Jurgen Klopp and Mo Salah will iron it out in the next few days, and it'll be business as usual on Saturday.
Ben Doyle came on, and I'm pretty sure that's the most minutes he's had on the pitch in a Premier League game. I think he's come on twice before, I can't remember. He certainly came on at Villa.
Maybe,
yeah. I think there might have been another one for a couple of minutes, don't know, don't quote me on that. But he came on, and what kind of a nod of approval to him after he had a very good summer. You know, there were some suggestions they might let him out on loan, but that doesn't look so that's going to happen. Is he now actually a first team squad member, like the sixth in line in the forwards?
I think you put it past him. He's got that edge of his seat quality, hasn't he? You don't know what to expect from him. Probably the only thing you can maybe question is his end product, but as a 17-year-old who's the finished article. But it's one of them players that you buy and you sometimes wonder why. And he's shown exactly why. Same with Diaz, he's played himself into the starting lineup on Saturday from his pre-season showing. So Doak's done the same. Doak's been one of, if not the best performers in pre-season anyway. So if he has a chance, he gets it. It's better than just leaving him to the Europa League or the Carabao Cup and FA Cup sort of lower rounds. Give him against one of the Champions League winners a few years ago, wasn't he? So,
I mean, what have you made of Ben Doak?
Yeah, he's been great to watch, and I think it's so hard for youngsters at a club like Liverpool, because, you know, there's a lot of people with all of this Caicedo drama saying, well, why don't Liverpool go out and buy the person that Brighton are going to replace him with? But then you think, if Liverpool went for a teenager from South America for $4 million, would that really satisfy the fan base? Would they be thrown in at the deep end? And I think when you've got a young player, it's so hard between getting that balance of blooding them into the first team, but also, you know, not exposing them to so much, you know, pressure and vitriol online if they misplace a pass. You know, I think Curtis Jones over the past couple of years has maybe been victim of that in making that transition from a youth player to a senior player. But yeah, he's a really, really exciting prospect, and you'd like to think, obviously, with Liverpool being in the Europa League, you'll get a couple of 90 minutes under his belt, and hopefully some minutes in the Premier League too. So a real show of faith in him by the manager to bring him on, especially in place of Mo Salah. So hopefully it's a sign of positive things to come for him this season.
I think what I would say about Salah is that you look at his relationship he's had with Harvey Elliott, and ever since Elliott came into the team, he was the one that was encouraging him, and you could tell that even when he first made his first substitute appearances or his first starts before he got injured, was that 2-3 seasons ago now? 2 seasons ago, I think it was now, yeah. That they just treated him as though he was a first team player, in the sense that they didn't even think twice to give him the ball. Even if it was in difficult situations, to just give it him, then they'd expect them just to be part of that. And Harvey has benefited from that, because you mentioned, you know, when he came on, I thought he did really, really well. And Doak's getting treated the same way, because you can see that Salah, when they are on both, I'm not even sure, they must have been on the pitch together at some point. And maybe actually, having said that, maybe they've not. No. But certainly in training you can see it. And certainly the other senior players, they don't even think twice about giving him the ball and you know, letting him go off and do his thing.
That's the thing, he's fearless, isn't he? And I think the way to sort of show your teammates to trust you, to just be fearless and just go for it, which is what he does. And it says a lot about a 17-year-old who goes into a Premier League game, doesn't look overawed, and maybe it's a testament to him, but it definitely is a testament to him, but it's also a testament to his teammates as well, the fact that he's earned that trust, that he can just go and get it. Maybe you'd hope against Bournemouth he gets a bit more of a longer run in the team, but it depends on the complex of the game, doesn't it?
Well, we've managed to get nearly 20 minutes into this podcast before mentioning transfers, but it looks as though we'll have to go there now, Beth. I mean, obviously it looks like Moises Caicedo is going to Brighton. Going from Brighton to Chelsea for about £16 million. If you said it, Brighton, that would be amazing.
Hilarious.
That would be very funny. I don't think he'd be too impressed, to be fair.
Wouldn't be a surprise though, would it?
Yeah, well, anyway, yeah, Chelsea suddenly we made that money up. It was monopoly money, not accounts. I don't think money's the problem for Chelsea in the sense of having it available, but obviously financial fair play and other such things that are beyond our means and understanding. I think have had to come into play there. But how do you think Liverpool, we'll come on to Lavia in a minute, but first of all with Caicedo, how do you think Liverpool will come out of that? Because you've got to bear in mind that on Thursday afternoon, no one had said they were interested, and now it was Sunday night, and then suddenly they're not going to sign him. So there was only a very small window where it's like, oh, they could actually get him here, and it obviously fell away because the player himself clearly wanted to go to Chelsea rather than anywhere else, let alone Liverpool.
I think there's sort of two ways of looking at it. I think in one sense Liverpool have come off fairly well out of the Caicedo stuff because they did everything by the book. They waited to see if Chelsea's interest would materialise into a bid. As of Thursday it hadn't, and they pounced, and it sort of looked like they were on course to pull off this real coup and get a really quality player, probably for more than he's worth, but still, the money was there to buy him, and if that deal had got over the line, it would have been sort of Chelsea being ridiculed for not getting the business done. And obviously now, it looks like he is going to Chelsea. I think you can question maybe what the purpose of Brighton's sort of midnight deadline on Thursday was, that silent auction, whether it was...
Weren't though, because Chelsea bid 100 million, now they're paying 115 million for him, so they're not going to complain too much.
I think, there was a report the other day that Liverpool, there's no ill will towards Brighton after that. I think, I don't think maybe Brighton have come out of it in the best possible light, but they'll be laughing all the way to the bank, won't they? So they won't care what I think, But yeah, so in one sense, you can't knock Liverpool for trying, but I think the whole saga, and we'll get on to Lavia in a minute, but the way that this whole thing has played out sort of is reflective of this disarray that the Liverpool have been in the transfer market in the last couple of years, isn't it? Since Michael Edwards left, and there's been so much change behind the scenes, and there's always been this sort of worry that, is that going to translate into Liverpool's transfer business? We saw last summer Arthur Melo brought in, sort of panic buying him on deadline day. And Liverpool, despite needing a midfield rebuild for quite a while and having known that they were going to be in the market for a defensive midfielder, certainly since the interest in Fabinho materialised, for them to have gone into the first day of the season without one. It's not a good look for the club, and I do worry now, because you think who is out there that is going to come in and have that transformational impact on the squad. I'm not sure there's too many players available for the right price that Liverpool can bring in.
There's always players. There's more than just Lavia and Caicedo. I mean, from what I understood is that Liverpool always knew that Chelsea were going to be favourites to sign Caicedo, and the latest I've heard now is that they're expecting them to sign Chelsea to sign Lavia as well. And I think the difference there is that Liverpool, in the same way that Manchester City, they have a certain value on a player. Like, they like a player, then they'll put a value on him, and then they might go a little bit above it, but they're not going to pay ridiculous amounts. And I think with Lavia, he's 19 years of age, and he may end up being a very good footballer. I know Jurgen Klopp obviously is a big fan, but Liverpool, having not bid more than, 46 million pounds? Was 46 million pounds? We're hearing that Chelsea have got a bid upwards of 60 million pounds. They're not going to make that bid, that jump, if they don't think he's worth it. Or do you think they're now in a situation whereby, just using that as an example, because again we're led to believe that Lavia probably is set his heart now on Chelsea. If Liverpool are in that situation, are they just going to have to take the hit of going from, for example, 46 to 60 just to get somebody in, even if they know they're paying over the odds this time because the clock's ticking, the season started, and this is a position they quite clearly need somebody to come in?
It's almost damage limitation now, isn't it? Because you've shown your cards, you've got 110 million pound in a bank, and you're quite stringent in what you were offering in the first place. But it's almost been a summer of gambles, hasn't it? Where you bring in someone for a short-term contract as a sporting director, and we've known that the midfield's been a problem area for a number of seasons now. And now you fast forward to the second game of the season on the horizon. You're going into the second game without another new signing, so you've got the same midfield, and if not, you've got a shorter hand. But Liverpool obviously going to come out a bit badly, and it's up to them whether they want to like swallow the bitter pill of paying over the odds for him. But who knows? And this time next year, we could be looking at probably £130 million players, and paying 60 million for a 19-year-old might be a good thing. But if Klopp fancies him that much, you've got to go for him, because obviously it's his decision. It is his decision at the end of the day, isn't it? So you've got to.
Because they're going to have to bring somebody in, because I mean Klopp said 2 weeks ago, was it 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that he said definitely would have somebody in, unprompted by the way. He was just talking about something else. It was on the club website, and one of the podcasts he was talking about new players coming in. He said, yeah, we'll definitely have at least one new player in for the start of the season. Well, he wouldn't have said that if he hadn't been told, but it was almost certain going to be happening. And as we've just pointed out, quite a lot of stuff has happened for it to not happen, or at least not yet. Has he got a right to feel let down a bit? Has he got a right to feel a bit let down overall over the summer? In fact, since January, because obviously there was the Bellingham situation, and I know that some Liverpool fans will go, well, how could you afford that bid for Caicedo if you can't afford Bellingham? But don't forget that they didn't expect to get £52 million for Henderson and Fabinho. So that does show that they probably had another 50 million to spend on a player. It could have been someone like Lavia or somebody like that. But now they're left with this. Let's just say, for argument's sake, 100 million, because they did say they were stretching it a bit to do that Caicedo. 100 million. What would you do? Would you go big on a defensive midfielder for 60, 70 million pounds, then bank the rest and just wait till next or January or whenever next summer to then change the squad a bit further, because they're going to need a centre back at some point? Or would you go, right, well, we know Basetic is going to come through. We can look to try and somebody for the amount that they were going to sign Lavia for, about 45, 50, and then spend the rest on the centre back now?
I think it all comes down to how much they value Lavia, doesn't it? I mean, I think sort of in a sense, obviously, I think we've become we've been linked with him for so long. It feels like now if we don't get Lavia, it'll be a failure. But almost in a way, I'd respect Liverpool for saying we stick by our £44 million, £46 million valuation. If Chelsea want to pay more than that, fine. Because it sort of feels now if Liverpool go above that £60 million figure, they've got egg on the face a little bit. They've paid sort of 15 million more for a player that they've wanted and been linked with and been sort of in a one-horse race for all summer. So it depends.
Well, does that remind you of Chelsea with Caicedo? So there could be a little bit of a comeback on that, I suspect.
But it's a difficult one. I mean, the question is there going to be aside from Lavia, who else is there that Liverpool can spend sort of 70, 80 million pounds?
As I said before, there's always players. There are a lot of defensive midfielders out there that can do a job that's more than good enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
For two things: one, to be for Basetic to learn from, and the second thing is then they can allow McAllister and sort of like whoever, Jones, Harvey Elliott, whoever comes in and plays there, even Thiago to an extent, to just go off and do their thing. They don't have to be like the world's best at the moment.
I suppose it depends on how good Liverpool's scouting network and how comprehensive their list of defensive midfielders is, isn't it? Because,
Well, the other complication is that Andre, isn't it? Because they like him and they would quite like to sign him, but he's obviously not in for the start of the season, and we're, by all accounts, certainly from Brazil, the Fluminense want us to keep hold of him until they're knocked out of the Copa Libertadores. Is that the one they're in? Yeah, Copa Libertadores. And the next round doesn't finish until the day, I think like August 30th or something like that. So they could get knocked out, Liverpool sign him, everything's sorted, but they can't then run the risk of waiting until August the 30th and going, let's just see what this Brazilian team's going to do.
I think in years gone by, you would have confidence that Liverpool were going to do the right thing, whether that be forking out that extra bit of cash for Lavia, whether it be going for someone who isn't even sort of publicly on their radar yet. We know how shrewd some of the business that the club have done over the past sort of 5-10 years has been, but I think the last couple of years we've seen sort of a little bit of a diversion away from the tried and trusted policy that Liverpool had and some of the brilliant bargains and the brilliant deals that they've got done. So I think that there are question marks. There have been question marks. Obviously, George Schmadtke is only in for a short time. Will he be the man for the job permanently? Sort of on the balance of what we've seen the last few weeks, probably not. So it just depends really what Liverpool have up the sleeve, doesn't it?
Would you back Big Jorg to pull an iron out the fire or two?
You've got to trust him in the end, haven't you? That was just.
You feel a bit sorry for him because he's been parachuted into this role, and it's probably one of the worst times you could have become a sporting director at Liverpool because of the way things have gone. And you've seen with Chelsea, they just, I'm pretty sure in the process of the time that we've done this podcast, they'll have probably tried to sign at least 13 other players. So, or is it just, you have to forget about all the other clubs, just concentrate on your own? And as we just mentioned, there's enough players out there. They should definitely be getting at least one person in, because you don't want to fall into the trap of, as we just said, leave it to the last minute, because Liverpool have shown, even under Michael Edwards, that when they leave things to the last minute, they're not particularly great at that.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because he's obviously only dealt in a small scale with Wolfsburg, but a small scale is the Bundesliga, isn't it? But you just want to be a fly on the wall for them conversation between Klopp and Macedonia. Obviously, be full of laughs, judging by how funny everyone says he is. But
it'd be German as well. So do you learn any German?
No. No, it's tough, isn't it? Because there's an element of feeling sorry for him, but then this is dragged out since the end of July now, hasn't it? So, and we've always been sort of teasing the price up a little bit. But I suppose you're always going to have an egg on your face, aren't you, when you've been sort of strung along by a championship side who've obviously held to the guns well, done the same with Ward-Prowse as well. So it leaves in a difficult position, but like I said before, if Klopp really wants Lavia, he's going to have to just bite the bullet and grab him.
Jamie, sorry, go on.
I think the issue at the moment is no one really knows who to point the finger at, do they? I know obviously FSG come in for a lot of criticism, and some of it is completely deserved, but they've shown that there was money there. So if there has been money there, then does it come down to Schmacker not having a comprehensive list? Does it come down to Jurgen Klopp? Maybe we know that he's taken a more proactive role in Liverpool's transfer business since the departure of Michael Edwards and Julian Ward. So it almost comes down to, from the outside looking in, it doesn't look like Liverpool are as well-oiled a machine behind the scenes as we're used to them being, and I think that's the issue, isn't it? And whether that will come back to bite Liverpool, we'll see, I'm sure, in the next couple of weeks.
The other interesting thing is that obviously Liverpool are going to be, whoever they bring in, is probably not going to be one of their first choices. But Sadio Mane wasn't a first choice buy. Mohamed Salah wasn't a first choice buy. And I'm pretty sure there's one or two others that, certainly when Klopp was first getting his feet under the table, he was trying to persuade players to come. And that first summer didn't have any Champions League football. I think it was Goetze, wasn't it? Didn't want to come. And the following year, I think, whether it's the same year, there was Mahmoud, who's funny enough, he's at Brighton now, isn't he? Yeah, he's at Brighton. He's not quite Caicedo's replacement, he's not quite that same type of player, but he's probably McAllister's replacement, actually. Yeah. There was Mahmoud, and there was Julian Brandt as well. He didn't want to come, and they signed Salah instead. So, again, that's going back to what Beth was saying, is that you've got to put your trust in the recruitment team, because otherwise Liverpool are going to have some problems, because then you go back to the actual squad itself, and is the squad going to be convinced by these players that's coming in? Because players have all their own opinions, and we know that the players that are there, I think the majority of them know that they should be doing better than they did last season, and certainly the ones who are coming know that Liverpool should be back in the top four, Szoboszlai, McAllister. So they all deserve or need somebody of a certain standard to come in, because the last thing you want is to spend a load of money on a player who comes in and then everybody goes, this is not going to work.
There's always that fear of not bedding in as well, because obviously they've got to come to a new environment, and there's a certain style of play.
Well, it took Fabinho 2 to 3 months, didn't it? And he ended up okay, but they haven't got that time now, have they? Because not only did they leave Henderson and they lost Fabinho, that's Milner as well, all these players who could play in that position. So it is unusual.
So Liverpool's delay is going to be even longer now, so it's a matter of if and when, because we've not got much time to sort of dwell on it and hope you've got to sign him at the end of the day, haven't you?
Are you expecting then something to happen? I'll finish on this. Do you expect Liverpool? What do you expect will happen in the next, not this week, but before the transfer window closes? I believe on September the 1st this year.
Yes. Yeah. They've got to get at least a defensive midfielder in, haven't they? Whether that be Romeo Lavia or someone else, they've got no choice but to get someone in. Now, whether that person goes on to become, the next Fabinho and helps completely transform Liverpool's midfield, only time will tell. But they've got to do that, and I think they've got to bring another defender in as well, whether that be sort of a left-sided centre-back and to help the new system, whether it be a right-back if Trent's now going to be if he wants to move full-time into midfield. But yeah, they need at least 2 more players, and I think without that, it's not even a case of 2 more players to help them compete for the title, it's 2 more players to help them compete for top 4, I think. And I think without that, it's going to be a long old season.
Have a think about who you'd want, so I'll come back to you in a minute.
Oh no.
It's not that question yet, but what do you expect to happen in terms of players coming in?
I think because they've sold it so much now, the player has to come in, whoever it is. Like you said, it could be a 4th, 5th, maybe even 10th choice at this point. But I think they're going to get someone in. It just matters of if and when, and especially with the transfer window shut. And we've got an international break as well, so you've got to be mindful of that. I think they've got to sign at least one midfielder, but like Beth said, we do need a defender, because this time next year we could be in another transfer saga spending upwards of 100 million for a young centre-back.
You've had about 30 seconds. Decide on your player. We'll ask you in a second.
I just go and camp outside the Bernabeu and just like heckle Tchouaméni until he agrees to come to Liverpool. But failing that,
would you really heckle him? Do you think you might get arrested?
Quite possibly, but you know,
it's worth it. Is it worth it though? Is it worth it?
The way the transfer window's panned out so
far. Who's paying for your flight to Madrid?
Which PLC?
You can tell you've not been working on.
Yeah, I mean, Liverpool have been linked with João Palhinha, very sort of tentatively linked with João Palhinha in the last couple of days. I mean, I liked him before last season. I certainly don't think he's worth £70 million.
It was 60 million, I think it was.
60 yeah. So again, it's whether, you know, the positive with him, he's a more senior player. He's had a full season playing in the Premier League and doing well. So if you're looking for someone to come in and make more of an instant impact and sort of be that destroyer, then, you know, I think he could be an option for the right price. But again, would Liverpool be willing to pay £60 million for a 28? Is he 28?
28, yeah.
28-year-old. Defensively, I don't actually know really. I think sort of I quite liked Timber, who obviously is now at Arsenal. I think, you know, I'm surprised that Liverpool didn't pursue that one more intently.
How much did he cost? How much was it?
40.
I won't push you on a centre back, don't worry. Just a defensive midfielder.
But yeah, I think I don't know is my long.
That's okay, fair enough.
It's a really long-winded way of saying I don't know, but Palhinha, if he was for the right price, but not for 60 million.
I go for Palhinha as well, on the basis that if you go for Palhinha at the right price, then you are saying that you think Bajcetic can do the job long term, because then you can just replace him with him, and then Palhinha become, you know, I'm not saying he's going to become the Milner or the Henderson, but if Liverpool end up become successful, there's no real reason for him to go anywhere else. And because of his age, the other leading teams won't really be that wants to go and get him. So I think that could help, but then it's whether they like him enough or not. The other one is the Crystal Palace guy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Decore.
The Tchouaméni, yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to be happening.
No, I mean,
and the lad at Benfica, who they did get kind of recommended to go and have a look at, Florentino Luis, he's really expensive as well. So.
But how expensive in this current market?
Well, it's just Benfica, isn't it? They're brilliant. They've got to be up there with Daniel Levy, or Levy, or however you pronounce it. With
the Portuguese Brighton.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, basically, get them three together in a transfer saga. They'll be there forever.
I know.
Anyway, you've had enough time to think now. Which defensive midfielder would you like to see at Liverpool?
Palhinha. I'm going to sit on the fence with you too. I think.
We're going to get absolutely slated for saying.
No, we're not.
We've
explained it perfectly.
He's done very well against us last season on the opening day, didn't he?
Yeah.
Might have even got man of the match.
That was a year ago. I can't remember.
Should have broken
yeah,
I think that was
I think he did.
Yeah. What was the game? What was the score in the home game? It was 1-0, wasn't it? Penalty. Did he play in that one? Not sure whether he did. I remember that. Yeah,
that's why
you're
they
right.
didn't win.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that he did have a good game. I'm thinking, who's this? And it was only like months after when I had a look, and I was like, he's a Portugal international. Where's he been playing? So, yeah, not so much on with Portuguese footballers. Perhaps some others are in our office, called Theo Squires. Anyway, that'll do us. Thank you for listening. Beth, where can we find you on Twitter?
At Beth_Lindop.
@_ Stephen Killen.
And you can find me at Theo Squires Echo. At Ian Dawn Sport, sorry. Yes. So that'll do us. Join us later this week where we'll be looking ahead to the game against Bournemouth. And who knows, maybe Liverpool have signed a defensive midfielder. Probably not, though. Cheerio.
You've been listening to the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.